And we're live. Okay, yes. Well, I guess not live. This is going to be recorded. But nonetheless, today we have yet another great guest. And today's guest is Dr. Ashley Dwyer. And Dr. Dwyer is a pharmacist, ACE certified health coach, former NPC athlete. Yeah, I mean, I really want to commend you on your page. Just want to start there before kind of like a little bit deeper into the intro as well. Obviously, as we get bigger and bigger people on, Seamus and I do a little bit of homework, and the flow and the color scheme, obviously the branding, and you probably have a specialist doing that. If it's just you, then congrats to you, because that's amazing. And I think the things that stuck out to me were great episodes right off of like the stuff you have pinned, which I know is like an ideal thing. So yeah, I became like super interested in just looking at the first couple things of like what makes you stand out and who you coach, because I know that actually identifying like that niche or niche of people is super important so that you can actually impact the most lives possible. You know, with that, like the health mindset coaching, the prenatal and postpartum coaching, the PCOS stuff that you do, functional nutrition and metabolic science side of things behind it all, makes me super excited for what we'll talk about today. And yeah, I'll let you do a little bit more on the intro unless I missed something there.
No, I mean, you nailed it. You got all the basics anyway, the SparkNote version.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ashley, again, thank you. I know you said we don't need the formalities of doctor, but you have earned that, esteemed title. And maybe we could talk about that, like being a PharmD. Like, why'd you pivot? What went from like doing medicine to doing this?
Yeah, I was going to say on Instagram or socials now, the DR kind of lessens my credibility, which is hysterical. Yeah, so I went into pharmacy because I wanted to like help people. I was a health and science nerd. And so pharmacy was like the growing career back when I was graduating high school and great for women. So I like jumped into it. And then my first year of pharmacy school or second year, I started competing in bodybuilding competitions like the NPC bikini division. And I just loved how you could manipulate the body with like diet and exercise. And I was like, this is so cool. Like the science nerd behind me really liked it. And I wanted to do more nutrition. And I was like, I'm not going to drop out of pharmacy school for like dietetics. Like, let me just finish my degree and then try and help my patients in the future with like diet and lifestyle. Right. And then I graduated and worked retail pharmacy. So like your typical Walgreens, and shout out to Publix in the Southeast, and hated it immediately. It was great working with people, but the amount of like disrespect, stress, long hours, inflexible schedule, like all of it was just the lack of time that you actually had to counsel patients. It was not what I wanted to do. So it was like really morally like burning me out. And still was competing after pharmacy school, like tried to do one more and just like wing it and see what I could do after graduating. I'll give you like, if you're trying to do any type of doctoral program or any type of degree, I really don't recommend competing in competitions. Like your brain is not, it's not
going to be there.
I feel like that points right to your number one thing of like try to reduce your stress, and that is not a good way of trying to show the best version of yourself on stage.
I have a funny story. I emailed like one of my professors in like pharmacology and was like, can I retake this test, like postpone it a week because of such and such, and like I'm really low carb. And he was like, I think you need a mental health professional.
Dang, that's hilarious. Like you're like trying to strategically place your like, I need carbs for my glucose in my brain, but you won't give me that. Okay.
Well, I ended up taking the test and getting like a low C, and it really affected my grade. And I was like, never again. We're not competing during pharma school. So
that's so hilarious. I get it though. It's kind of crazy competing at a high level when you're so depleted, but then being like, all right, but I still gotta ace this thing. What? Like
there is no acing. No, there's nothing. Insane. No. So then I went into like my own health issues, and, Western medicine and my pharmacology degree, like kind of failed me, and fell in love with functional medicine. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I kind of did both for 2 years until I could bite the bullet and finally take the risk and jump into this full time. And now it's been 4.5 years.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Started your business right in the middle of the C word, the lockdown.
No, I started it in 2018, but I quit and went full time during the C word, because pharmacy during the C word was the worst experience ever.
We could say, I don't think we're gonna get demonetized, but like, was your health coaching business, and obviously all that, did it really skyrocket actually, just because it's like virtual, it's remote, right?
Yeah. 2021 was fantastic. You could like say anything and you'd get a bunch of applications that were coming in. It was awesome time to grow. And then, I kind of miss those days, I'm going to be honest.
Welcome to the modern world where
I don't want another pandemic, but it was great for health coaching.
Yeah, let's let's not have it happen again for
No.
my own sanity and also just the long-term lingering effects of society as a whole. But nonetheless, in terms of being able to like obviously grow and scale, great time for that. Like you said, it was like you were provided this opportunity to like jump in full bore, and then allowed you to really focus more on kind of like you said, like the Eastern medicine, but you have the Western background. So what do you utilize in terms of East meets West? Because inquiring minds will probably wonder, like, how do you probably apply both? Because I'm imagining that you probably do as part of like your application with people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even want to say that we're like Eastern medicine, because that can be a lot of like herbs and naturopathy and like acupuncture and things like that. Not that I don't like those things, but that's not what we're always prescribing to patients. We're doing more like lab testing, Dutch tests, GI panel or GI maps, looking at digestion holistically, like looking at your schedule, your stress, your family life, your support system, mental health, emotional health, everything, and how it kind of interacts together. Like the body's a system, and Western medicine doesn't treat the body as a system. It treats it as its individual place. So, you know, when you're treating thyroid, you don't also know that you're affecting gut health. You're affecting everything else in the body, sex hormones, cortisol. So we tie it all together through lab testing and then addressing each system together.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. I'm already like gonna take notes because like I know Marcos and I are like this is the stuff that is like I think especially with women it's just like a little bit harder, right, Marcos? Like,
Yeah, I mean, if I say this, like I currently have a client and I feel as though she's most commonly making claims again about like, you know, being in like perimenopause, right? And obviously I know that that does have a pretty profound impact on the ability for things to move a certain way. But then, you know, I guess approaching that as best as possible as a male and then looking at stuff, because like I don't want people to sink a ton of money into more things right out the get-go, right? They've already paid for the coaching stuff, and I don't operate with like a quote unquote a practice background, right? When I'm dealing with like my clients versus patients, because, you know, we got so many like big pillars to shift in the beginning, like stress reduction and sleep and, you know, just a lot of things that I think are often overlooked. And, you know, but again, maybe incorporating those things early on could be beneficial because then they actually make some quicker changes to certain areas.
I mean,
what do you think?
You're still approaching it in the same way we would approach it. We're just not necessarily maybe like guessing, not that you're guessing, but like we're still doing those big pillars. And that's what a lot of women and clients don't understand is those pillars are still going to be the answer to your hormone issues, whether you're postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, PCOS. It's just how you dial those pillars is what makes the difference. So for a woman in perimenopause, like they are very, very, very sensitive to stress during that time. So cortisol, all the balances need to be in check. Calorie deficits can't be too large. Like overtraining is going to be a huge thing. Sleep needs to be dialed in, even though it's kind of a mess during perimenopause with how the hormones go. Insulin resistance is going to be really key, like doing blood sugar control and insulin control. So how they're eating, how much they're eating, how they're pairing their meals. So that's the same thing we would do in a normal individual, like protein, starting the morning with protein, lifting heavy weights, but theirs just mean more because they're so sensitive in this situation. So they need to be a little bit more turned up where we might be able to be successful at 80%, be 90%.
I see what you mean. And like being able to assess those markers off the get-go just kind of gives proof, right, down the line.
I mean, all it will do is really show us the severity of where they're at and give us, like, if I had a 45-year-old perimenopausal woman, her sex hormones are going to be all over. Her testosterone's probably going to be low. Her insulin won't be terrible yet, like glucose markers, but they'll be shifting in the wrong direction. So it's just kind of letting us know where they're at, not necessarily like I'm not also giving them a bunch of supplements. Some companies do that. We don't do that. I like to do the 5 pillar, like the pillars first, solidify those. And then if we still need supplementation, then we'll work on that. You know, you're like sensitive to stress and high cortisol and you have someone who's automatically going to give out like rhodiola and ashwagandha. Like, no, that's not what I would do.
That's my answer to everything. Oh, stress. My thought on this is like, you know, when someone listens to this, there's a gambit of things that they're going to be working on, right? So let's just stick with a perimenopause, PCOS person, maybe something like this. That's something I've been seeing a lot more of. And, you know, there's so many behaviors that they can work on that, like from their health intake to your assessments to now their coaching. What does that even look like? Where do you even start? Because it's like, all right, they got to have good sleep. But also, you can't be too stressed. Oh, by the way, you got to lift. You even know how to lift? Also, like, your diet, we're going to change that on its head. Like, how do you even approach this conglomerate of things, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, I think the first thing is the initial consult, and you have to see where they're at. You have to see like what kind of lifter they even are, or if they're lifting, like you said, how they're eating, if they even know how to track. Like, you kind of have to see where they're at and then meet them where they're at with your protocols. So, if they want results in 6 months and this client is brand new to all of this, it's not going to happen. It's going to take at least a year, because we got to baby step these habits, right? We can't make them do it all in week one. We have to okay, we've done 2 weeks of this.
A little bit.
Yeah. It takes clients 2 to 3 weeks to even get decent at macro tracking. And we track macros as a company just because I need to see what you're eating. I need to see how much. I need to see your protein and your fiber. We shift them out of that, but even getting a client feeling comfortable with macros takes a couple of weeks. So
yeah, really is.
I mean, I'm still learning, and I've been doing it for like 10 years.
That's how much protein's on that plate. Dang it, I missed my protein window.
I mean, again, like being critical, but like sometimes I wonder about like calories of net carb equation stuff, and I'm just like, dude, like, I mean, it's just such a, I'm like, I account for whatever the macros say, you know what I mean? I'll disregard kind of the nutrition label of the calorie like magic that they do, because I would much rather kind of know where those numbers are and then look at like fiber, like you just said, for myself. Like, I'm like, I don't know how sugar alcohol or this other kind of like semi-soluble fiber kind of thing that's like a frankenfood, how it actually behaves. And but I do like a protein bar that has that from time to time. So like, it's but like you're saying, so I mean, so you mentioned kind of like this downregulation of testosterone, and I don't want to get like super in depth of that, but like then you also mentioned like this other like insulin resistance kind of thing, kind of rearing its ugly head for women that are kind of in this mid 40 range. And again, I'm more commonly seeing that those are a lot of women that I'm working with. So like, why is that? Like, why does that happen?
it's a decline in estrogen. So when we're going through perimenopause and menopause, we're losing all of our sex hormones basically. So progesterone is already super low in all women, to be honest, of this day and age. Estrogen starts declining tremendously, which helps us so much with insulin sensitivity. So when it starts to decrease, we have a harder time processing carbohydrates and secreting insulin and starting with more fat storage in the belly region, which is also more visceral fat, which also just keeps this vicious cycle of more insulin resistance and, so it kind of feeds itself.
So then what's the solve?
The solve is learning how to keep them insulin sensitive. So building more muscle mass, because muscle mass is like the best place to stick excess blood glucose. Like it's its favorite place for blood glucose to go is more cells in the muscle. So more muscle mass, more steps and NEAT activity really, really help with insulin sensitivity, especially after meals. Not necessarily getting rid of carbs, but making sure that they are eating at least 25, 30 grams of fiber a day. So we're eating more like complex foods and blunting like the giant insulin spikes that we would see if not. Sometimes we utilize what's called a carb consistent diet to keep blood sugar steady throughout the day. So like if you have 120 grams of carbs as your macros, having each meal be like 40 grams if you have 3 meals, or spread over snacks, but just making it consistent so that we can give the body it's not erratic, right?
Yeah.
A lot of women, especially women in their 40s and even, 20s and 30s, we have girl dinner, right? We don't eat, we snack, we graze. And that is the worst thing that you could do for blood sugar. So getting these women to eat like consistent, satisfying meals.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I know you're going to continue, but it's like I was just having this conversation with a client last week about a habit and behavior. They're like, yeah, just, do a handful of like these nuts and trail mix. I'm like, wait. You've been tracking all your food. How much do you get of these like nuts? And it's like pecans, like this much, just like a handful. I'm showing to the camera here.
Yeah.
Not like the little 11 that you count that you're supposed to count or something. I don't know. And I'm like, I did the math. I'm like, that's an extra like 3,000 calories. I think if you're doing that like 3 or 5 times a day. They're like, are you serious? I was like, how long have you been doing this? It's like, the last 20 years.
The bodybuilding serving size was always like 12 almonds. You were allowed 12 almonds.
Count it.
It's pretty dang accurate. It's hilarious how like the thumb and 12, like, the more you, like you just said, like when you're applying this and you're taking 3 to 4 weeks in that initial like month with working with people, they come to the table with that like, oh my God, that was very eye-opening of like how little I truly get. I see I'm more full now because I've made some adjustments. It feels like a lot of food. And then we're like, yeah, but now it's actually a calorie deficit, which you haven't been able to actually get in, even though you're eating more food, right? Like And I mean, like, that's how we know we're getting the macros like almost to mastery pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that reminded me of like the other new thing is like I was eating in a calorie deficit, it's starvation mode, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like no, you just were binging and eating like
Yeah.
handfuls of almonds.
It's so weird, like how to it's so weird how to explain that to someone that they're like, well, I don't really eat much. I'm like, you may not eat much volume, like as in like these big dense meals, but you're getting a lot of energy in just different ways, and maybe you might not even be mindful of it. Like I said, like this person would walk by the pantry, and it's just like this habit that they've done. Every time they walk from their office to the assistant's office or something like that, it's just like, oh, it's just this little thing, and it's just like this little mental blind spot you haven't thought about. And you might be watching TV, or there might be some other like habits that you're like, wait, what? Like, yeah. So it's just this mindfulness that I think sometimes I forget. You know, people forget all the time.
And Seamus, what you could tell your clients from now on is like, yes, the gorilla is a vegan, and it eats 450 pounds or 450 grams of protein from bamboo a day. But I don't really think that you should be eating bamboo as your protein source, right? Like,
That sounds intense.
I mean, again, like, it's probably not like that. I just know that there's something along those lines because you look at the muscle of a gorilla, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to win in a fight, right? 100 men or one gorilla, since that's also what's been going around social media now. But so since being insulin sensitive, again, we will all agree here is like number one thing. That's why we train. Also, too, it gives us more flexibility in the long run, right? Like we're training for muscle mass, for insulin sensitivity. So we can also have some of the modern foods as well. Like you just said, 80 to 90% of the time, we effectively really want to focus on these core real foods, like you said, and having it pretty evenly spread across the day, which is basically kind of like how, if someone asks me, like, they're like, what's the easiest way to do this without tracking? I was like, 4 meals a day, learn what 50 grams of protein is as a male, what 30 grams of protein is as a female, probably about this almost a 1-to-1 ratio of carbs, learn what that is, put a serving of vegetable on there, and you're probably going to do pretty damn good, right? Like if I were to like very rudimentarily simplify that. But you're also mentioning that from just like in that particular age, it matters a bit more because you kind of have that evening of the blood sugar. And I had a couple questions pop up in my head. Like, do you ever get clients to get like CGMs to look at those things to give them information, or is it more based on feel? Would you ever see value in that?
I don't love CGMs because I think if someone's not pre-diabetic, it just creates this like anxiety around what their spikes are. It gives them more food fear. And in that subset of clientele, perimenopause, where I said they're more sensitive to stress, I'm going to give them something else to freak out about, you know? I don't personally like it. Have you ever done a CGM? I did it for 2 weeks and I was like, this is awful. I have anxiety.
No.
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree. Two things, like other than the CGM, but like the Fitbit when it first came out. Oh my God, I gotta get like the 10,000 steps. You're brushing teeth and just like trying to go to sleep and just stepping around. But I've seen it in really smart people. I think the CGMs, and I'm not trying to like bash on this, but I think this whole quantified self movement, I love it because I know how to handle it. But some people, they're too smart for their own good, where they have access to all these tools and they get it, but they're not getting results. And then they are now chasing this rabbit a little bit. That's like, you're just never going to catch it. They're like, well, I do this. And it's like, yes, I love that we're getting more data and I love that we're getting a little bit more of this, but the behavior at the end of the day is like, it's been months and we still haven't shifted anything. I think we're just kind of like mentally masturbating here. Like we're just kind of like doing this thing. We're just kind of like, you know what I'm saying?
I was like, yeah, they're data chasers, but I love mentally masturbating. I'm sorry.
There you go. I told you this.
I'm going to use that.
Well, and I mean, I brought that question because that, like, again, like the quantified self, like Seamus, I've not worn a CGM. To me, it's like, again, another piece of data for me that's kind of arbitrary and doesn't necessarily lead to change for me. I am strongly considering doing a 1-year experiment with like the newest Whoop. Just she's like, boom,
5.
right there.
5.0?
Is that
Chasers?
Well,
I look at it every day.
Do you have, is yours 5.0 with the blood pressure
MG,
beta?
yeah.
The MG? Yeah. Okay, so maybe you can, have you got a couple readings from that already? Because I know it's like brand new.
No,
how does
I
it compare?
readings, but honestly, I had the Whoop before. I've had the Whoop since 2019. I'm kind of like addicted to it, so I'm like an OG member. The interface is all the same. The only thing that it really does is like it gives you your age, like your health span, like your biological age, and then you can sync up like a blood pressure, but I need a cuff, so I don't have a cuff, so I can't do that. And it can take an ECG and it can sync my cycle, but like, I don't know if it's like that crazy compared to the regular.
Yeah, I was more so curious about like getting again, calibrating blood pressure, mine tends to like air slightly elevated for my systolic. So I was like, hey, like if this thing, and we're coming from clinical land here, right? Ashley, like, is there actually value there for us to report back to our physicians? Like, hey, I've tested this. It's very close. I mean, for years, we were recommending using a polar strap as the only way to really get a true heart rate. I'm like, dude, 1 or 2 beats difference for an Apple Watch at the newest generation. Like, why would you even bother getting another device that you're probably going to lose, right?
Yeah, it may not be there yet. I did have a conversation with Root by the time this comes out. It's probably okay to mention it. But kind of got on some calls, and it's like, looking at exercise science data, looking at like sports performance and all that, it's like, they're pretty close. They're always working with sports scientists and they're working with physicians. Like they kind of do their thing, Marcos, where it's like for example, I did a VO2 with somebody, and the VO2 was within a 1 to 2% difference, and I was like, I take the whoops if I couldn't record a true VO2. And when we talked about the blood pressure, they're like, yeah, we're getting closer every time. I'm like, all right, okay, I see. Yeah.
Now I'm like, where's my VO2 max?
Whatever.
I'm 30 right now is my biological age, so I'll take it.
Nice.
I'm not gonna ask you your true age, because it's like, my mom would slap me because you don't ask her.
That's not nice.
Seamus. It's part of my marketing, because I get women all the time of like, wait until this. I'll be 37 this year, so if I'm gonna be 6.5 years younger, I'll take it.
Dang, that's good.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's the other thing too, is like the whole idea behind this younger age, your younger self, and putting like the biological age. I mean, to me, it just, I guess I got to get in it a little bit more, Seamus. I just don't love it. I don't love this idea of like, again, like age is just age, but like, again, like, again, perspectively,
that's another combo with the longevity, experts that we've been working with. But let's do this. So, with insulin resistance, things like this, PCOS, all that, we talk about this concept around stress, though. But a lot of this can be stressful, right? Hiring a coach is stressful. They're literally asking me to change my whole life. And change, one of my favorite books is this book called Immunity to Change. And it takes a lot to work on your beliefs, your mindset, your identity, all this. With that being like this stress, can you kind of define the stress and then like how you try to lower it? Because stress is important, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can't ace a test if you don't stress about it and put the work in. You can't build your muscle if you don't stress your muscle. How would you manage stress, I guess, is the question here.
Yeah. And especially for women, this is a great question, because a lot of people, like you say, there's different types of stressors. So if I'm on a consult call, I will ask someone like, an average day, can you rate your stress levels from 1 to 10, right? Like 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Yeah. This allows me to see, they'll do anywhere from like, some women are a 12, other women are like a 3, no big deal. That is their perceived level of stress, right? So we have that to take into account, which is usually including like work, deadlines, traffic, finances, kids, husband, spouse, whatever. That is usually taking in perceived stress. The stress that people don't think about, that we think about as coaches, is like undereating, overeating, undertraining, overtraining, toxic load, alcohol, a bunch of different things that go into physiological stress as well as mental stress. So when we get a client who comes in, depending on where they're at, even if we don't have blood work, maybe we have a diagnosis of hypothyroidism or PCOS or even perimenopause, we have them do a 5-day log before they start working with us, so we can kind of see where they're already eating and what we need to do. Granted, the tracking's not going to be accurate if they're not used to tracking, but at least it gives us like a play-by-play of the foods they're choosing. We'll either take them out of the deficit that they've been in to kind of relieve stress. We'll have them increase training, decrease. It's all about a balance. So if we're nourishing properly, feeding our body enough for the activity we're doing, getting in adequate sleep, like it's okay to do those CrossFit classes. Like I barter with my women. I'm like, if you want to do 5 CrossFit classes a night, I need sleep to be perfect and you to be eating this much food. And if they can't do it, it's physiologically too much and an overtraining for them that will back it back down. Plus, we kind of monitor week to week of their biofeedback. So like, how's your energy levels? How's your bowel movements? How's your cycle? Do we have an irregular cycle because of stress? There's a lot of different little like nitpicky ways that we can identify stress and just how they're feeling. But it's all a balance. So you don't need to eliminate stressors, but sometimes too much training or too much volume can be the thing that's like not allowing them to recover well that month, or if they're in a deficit, right? Yeah. So just trying to like, I don't know, women are built for awesome things, but there is a threshold of like how much we can push ourselves, unfortunately.
Yeah. I wanted to add, great explanation, by the way. I think people need to take note of that. Like, I think this like umbrella of stress, good, bad, things you don't even know about that you're doing day to day. Like it is a stress. I think we just give stress this weird connotation. I have like the first question that came into my mind though is I'm just gonna play like a person that's listening to you right now and be like, and this is something I hear a lot. And I still struggle to like explain this. Maybe you can explain it better than me. Like a lot of women tell me like it's my stress, and that's like it's always like it's my stress, and that's why I'm not getting any progress, or I'm not losing weight, or I'm not doing anything like that. What do you say to that?
Do you ask them follow-up questions? Do you say like, what do you mean you're stressed? Or like, what about your stress? Or why do you think it's your stress?
So I do ask follow-up questions, but Dr. Ashida, I'm throwing you a lob here so you can take it home right now.
I'm gonna ask follow-up questions. Okay, so obviously I have this saying, and it's pinned somewhere on my profile, or maybe it was, and I repinned something else. But I have this like controversial take that like it's not your hormones, it's your lifestyle. So even if you are stressed, it's because of the way you're living or what you're doing. That's why you can't lose weight. It's not necessarily your hormones blocking you, and nobody loves when I say that. But
we gotta clip it. I mean, I hear you. Like sometimes I still struggle with this. Like I've been coaching women for 10 years. I've coached more women than I've coached men. I've coached a woman as an 18-year-old and telling like a woman what to do with her pelvic floor because she's, has incontinence, but I'm doing a group class. I'm like, yo, tuck your pelvis in, belly button in, and we're going to be fine on these jumping jacks. They're like, don't tell me what to do. I'm like, just trust me for 1 second. and it works. And then they realize, oh, there's some buy-in. But, sometimes I think you have more of that edification to be like, yeah, it's not your stress, it's your lifestyle. And I don't think some people want to hear that because it's really going to push on their stress a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of like radical responsibility to shift your lifestyle, right? And a lot of people, I think on the internet, we're seeing two things right now. So I'm sorry you have to deal with it too, but a lot of women who are against working with men because they think they're mansplaining. And I don't agree with that. Like, I think if you're knowledgeable in the subject and you work with a lot of clients that are women, like you should have that experience, right? Like it's fine to speak about something. And then two, we're just seeing a lot of like, why did I just literally lose my train of thought? My ADD finally kicked in.
And it's okay. I've been like that the whole day, so it's totally fine. I've been like that the whole day. It'll probably come back in just a second.
I was because so upset about women like being mean to men who are experienced in the space that I lost my second train.
Exactly.
It's all right, Ashley, because I know that Seamus decided to make a boneheaded move and eat a salad at a movie theater yesterday, and he wasn't feeling good today.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling good today, and it definitely did affect like my gut health. I was like, geez, like, and it's kind of weird because it's like I'm very good with my gut, which I try to be. At first, I didn't have my digestive enzymes. I was like, damn. And I think they undercooked that chicken or something, dude. I don't know what was wrong with it.
Botulism, just a little salmonella for lunch. Hey, but did you enjoy the new Mission Impossible movie? Is that what you saw?
I watched it last week. I watched everything opening day, Marcos. So Dr.
Oh, sorry, dude. I forget that you don't have 2 kids like myself yet.
I'm a movie buff, so like I watched Ballerina with Ana de Armas this weekend. I really love it.
Ballerina? What the hell?
Yeah, it's a John Wick movie.
Oh, got it.
No idea.
Dr. Ash's like,
to read on movies. Don't
like, yo, I'm too busy with my life. Yo, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah. Well, that's what. See, I mean, that's why you got lost, because Seamus his aura is just over there, just in this whole different ethos.
Space. But yeah, you were saying like 2 things. Obviously, the mansplaining thing or working with men, but then
I don't know what we were talking about before that. This is the problem.
Course correction.
Course correction.
Being blunt.
Being blunt, knowledgeable, understanding how to ask leading questions, and probably motivational interview. Yeah.
No, okay. I was going to say the other thing we're seeing online is like a lot of accounts and giant creators like coddling women and telling them kind of like making them feel seen and heard, but then not really giving them action. They're just like, yeah, you've been dismissed by your doctor and you're anxious and like menopause and perimenopause. And these women are like, yeah, this is me. And then they get stuck in this like victim mindset of like, it's my hormones. I can't do anything. Like it's not my fault, or there's nothing I can do. And I hate that so much. That's what you'll get a lot of women who are like, no, it's this. And they've probably seen it on the internet, and just trying to change that narrative, I think, is super important and hard.
Yeah. I might get a lot of flack for this question, but it's okay. I'm here to be controversial.
Marcos is better at he's better at being blunt than I am.
Well, like, again, like you just said, it's like, one, we'll go to the psychology piece after, but like, is it true to say, again, if you're not losing weight, that you're just not in a deficit? You know what I mean? Like, can we call a spade here, Ashley? Or is it really that there's this hormone problem? We have to, like you said, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, is it a combination of both? Is it that like you know.
Are we gonna have a Seco breakdown?
No, this is.
I mean, we can make it a calorie in, calorie out kind of thing, but I mean, again, we're all probably of the same kind of coaching philosophy. I feel like everybody these days, we all read the same literature / the same AI prompts.
And you fed it that literature, and be like, hey, give me the too long, did not read.
Yeah, give me the TLDR, right? Give me the TLDL when it comes to podcasting. But at the end of the day, like we're effectively like, hey, we're using stress management techniques to help lower stress, which includes walking. We're increasing insulin sensitivity with training, which also then has something to do with caloric expenditure. It's still kind of like this equation, and I'm not saying that hormones don't play a role in it, but like and now I'm kind of like, to what level does it really make a huge difference? Because now you're talking, hey, we know PCOS, and basically you have a woman with like primarily a little bit more androgen dominance, right? And then they have this like massive explosion of like weight gain, right? Quote, unexpected, right? But is it also just because like that androgen dominance leads to just such a higher level of appetite that they can't suppress it ever?
Yeah, so I was going to say you're right. To answer the initial question is, if you're not losing fat, you are not in a calorie deficit. Like that is the key. Like no one's escaping the first law of thermodynamics. But hormones absolutely do play a role. Like insulin resistance and PCOS, you're going to have increased cravings and emotional, like the stress. You're going to have increased emotional eating. You're going to have increased like ghrelin and decreased leptin. So because of sleeping poorly, and perimenopausal women, they're increasing a lot more calories based on dysregulated hunger hormones, insulin resistance, coping, stress, wine. They love their wine. We're having a lot more.
You like your wine too? Is that because you like your wine too? Do you like wine too?
I do better with tequila. My Whoop doesn't love wine, but it likes tequila.
It's a tequila's fine. You figured it out. Okay, that's funny.
This is how you biohack, okay?
I know.
TSL and a little 3 milligrams in, just to really like set you over the edge.
I love it.
So we get that component of calories in really being affected by those hormones, right? And then on the calories outside, we're burning less because we're losing muscle mass. We're not moving as much. Fatigue is setting in because we're not sleeping, so we're moving poorly. We're getting a little bit more fat storage than we are fat burning. So the hormones will absolutely affect both sides, calories in versus calories out, usually leading to more calories in than calories out. So we need to increase calories out, but not overstressing the client, and then taking care of coping mechanisms for stress, how they're eating to decrease the insulin cravings. Maybe a further deficit.
This is the part where, so like we've gone through the hormone, we've gone through the stress, and I think like the first part of my mind is like, all right, so then I guess we gotta figure out the dysregulated like eating mechanisms. That's like what we gotta do. So I think like,
well, Seamus, I mean, like I feel like she's mentioning like the episodic sleep, right? Like the fact that it's just so like not normal when you get to this thing, you're waking up with hot flashes and it's interrupted. You're not probably feeling like recovered. And we all know that like sleep leads to kind of like you naturally kind of wanting to dysregulate your eating habits a little bit more. And like, again, like going back to what we said earlier is like this small amount of handful, which seemingly is not a lot of food, is being consumed because you're like, I just need something to get through my day, right? I don't know if I'm hungry, if I'm tired, if I need more caffeine, whatever that is. All these things are effectively like driving up calories, but to the average person, it doesn't seem like it because they're not eating a lot, or you're driving up caffeine, which is then just ramping up more stress, which then just kind of perpetually kicks the can down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, man. No, it just makes a lot of sense. And it, you talked about the sleep. The first image that came into my mind was one of my clients a long time ago, where she told me like she used to wake up all the time, and we struggled like with her weight loss for a long time until she decided to work with like a physician around her hormones. And she would wake up always around like 2 or 3, something like this. And then she would just look at the clock, and she goes like, yeah, I don't know. I would just walk around and just look at the clock. And then I'd get some sleep around from 6 to 7. And then that was it. And I was like, huh. And I didn't realize it then because I was such a young coach. I was like, all right, yeah, just do this HIIT class though. Let's go. Just stick to your meal plan. Stick to this meal plan though, right?
12 almonds.
Stick to the meal plan. Get your heart rate up. Go lift those weights. Yeah, I'm not losing any weight, coach. Like, what do you think this is? I mean, obviously not a calorie deficit, but perpetuated by the fact, like Marco said, like just lack of sleep and always wanting to eat other things and trying to solve the brain stress problem.
Well, think of it this way too. Like before you reply, Ashley, like I know how good I am at tracking, and even then, there's stuff that like I will omit, right? And again, like it's my system, it works for me. I'm not getting on stage. I'm just trying to look, good in a bathing suit. Which, dude, Seamus, by the way, someone asked me today to go do a male model shoot, and I was like, is it naked or is it with clothes on? And I was like, I was flattered. I was like, oh shit, I'm not even like shredded enough for this, but it's okay. The good thing I tried the diet last 2 weeks. What?
You say yes?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Bathing suit.
Bro. Leave with that.
Someone, I'll send you the message later. It's kind of hysterical, actually.
Good.
But
Oh no.
I lost my train of thought.
My aura, bro. That's my aura, dude.
Yeah. See, dude, it's the brain fog is rubbing off on me. I didn't know that was like a venereal disease. You
Mind
just
virus
pass it along
today.
like that.
Passing through the data, through the Wi-Fi, dude.
Shit. What was I saying? Tangent.
You've been tracking for a while and even
Track.
limit things. Yes.
Yeah, right. So, but I choose to do that because it's like part of my system. Hey, like I will make sure I include the weight of my sauces, but like I won't include marinades. But at least I'm really consistent with that. But could it like lead to just enough to not like be seeing positive results? And then I wonder too, I'm like, as good as I am, 10 years plus expert, logger, tracker, doing that, down to like literally like to the weight of the cream in my coffee. Like I can get that granular if I want. Yet, some of these people are saying that they're doing things. And again, like I try to meet them where they're at and try to help them with that. And, you mentioned this, this particular client waking up at this time. I'm like, dude, this is literally my woman right now. And then I was like, but what's, I asked that deeper question to that earlier question that you asked her. And she's like, I'm just ruminating on things. Like I have all this stuff I need to do. I'm the planner. I got to do all this stuff with work and my life. And like, what do I do? I was like, do I need to tell you, like, have you ever tried writing it all down before you go to bed? Like, have you ever just like brain dumped? Like, people that are like you, might really benefit from knowing what you have to go attack the next day. And if it wakes you up again, dump it out again, because there's maybe something else you missed. But like, techniques like that, and just like how the mind just wakes up and like keeps going. Like you start thinking about these things. Like literally my wife literally just got her results back from a thyroid biopsy because she has a nodule. Everything's good. She's clear. And she's joking today. Literally right before we got on this call, she was like, so what's the next thing that I have to ruminate on? I was like, nothing. You're fine.
No.
She's like, no, I think I finally put everything to bed. I was like, cool. You're healthy. You're good. Once there's a problem and you don't feel right, maybe you can start going and experimenting further. But to like put it on yourself, you just got a clean bill of health. It's crazy how people will look for a diagnosis. I need to know something's wrong. Well, you know that something doesn't feel right. So why not try fixing the little things you haven't done before?
It's our specialty to ruminate.
And yeah, as a woman or just as humans in general?
Women. I feel like
Yeah.
men can like compartmentalize and think of one thing at a time, maybe. Women have like 18 tabs open at literally any given point.
You haven't seen my screen on this computer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now we're gonna.
Mine are in categories at least.
Do you know
Oh,
about
that's a step
one
further than
tab?
me.
Do you know about one tab, Dr. Ashley Dyer? The one tab, do you know what that is? So one tab takes all your tabs and then categorizes them on like a page, and organizes really well. It's easy. It's a Chrome extension. Highly recommend it. You might like it because you literally, let's say you have 10 things, but it's all about work. So that's your work tab. And then this 10 things about maybe research. It's like, all this. Highly recommend it. It will organize your life a little bit. So everything doesn't have to be open all at once.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I have that on my thing, and it is organized by client check-ins, like business, like things like that, but they have to be open under those categories. But you can close the categories. You can expand.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I'll show you guys later.
Yeah, I mean,
we're always
actually,
trying to figure out workflows.
I love organization, and it's Rachel's, our producers, and Seamus's love language. Seamus is the only person I know that can give me anxiety for being too organized for his wedding. He sent me a Notion of all this shit, and I was like, dude, I'm overwhelmed by how organized you are.
A Notion board. Yeah, that's nice.
So what I do is I'll prompt it into Chat GPT, and I'm like, I want this heading to this. Chat 2 minutes in, copy and paste it into Notion, double check, send it out to the team. Funny enough, my website is called Lumbar Crustacean. I don't know why it's named that. Desiree's named my fiance's like named something else, and I'm like, or she's like something Mango. I'm like, all right, Captain Mango or whatever. I don't know.
I think it's telling you that you have a weak spine.
Yeah, maybe I need to work on my spine, bro. But I want to ask you this, Dr. Ashley. Talking about like just kind of like behavior, tracking it, all this stuff. Maybe there's a good part in the call to kind of be like, all right, in the podcast, to kind of like, okay, working with someone, they're listening to you, and they're like, all right, you've got all these different things to help them out, but like predictive modeling, like what if someone is in that 45-year-old perimenopause range, 45 to 55 range, and they decide not to do this stuff? Like, what are the things that they're just going to keep getting into? Like, we just talked about it. Sleep and rumination is really worse. I don't know how to do that because I love my sleep too much. Like, I sleep like a baby, so I can't even imagine, like, even, like, empathizing with that because that's, like, really difficult. But, like, what else can someone expect if they decide, like, okay, this is not something I'm going to work on, but, like, they're hearing it today and they're listening to you, they're like, snaps.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like when you don't choose to fix things, and I'm not even suggesting HRT. Like if people want to do HRT, go for it. I think that's awesome. And, that's another avenue for women. But if they're not even going to consider changing their lifestyle to feel better, just like, what is your alternative? You're going to keep feeling like crap. You're going to keep gaining weight. You're going to keep being unhappy. And it's just going to exponentially get worse as the years go on. You're going to lose more muscle mass. You're going to lose more bone mass. So you're not really setting yourself up for a great quality of life. Like if you're choosing not to do that, like you're kind of choosing to have an injury and break a hip, or, you're choosing like 30 pounds of weight gain. Like as bad as that sounds, I'm pretty direct and blunt too. Like I'll tell you, we're not going to sugarcoat it. It's not a great future.
Okay. No, that's a really good question. I'm going to follow up with another question. And I'm playing a little devil's advocate here. Well, I don't want to do lifestyle. What if I just take the magic pill? What do you think about that? What if I just, do a little Oz effect? What do you think about that?
If they get on like a GLP-1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
GLP-1, this is my thing with GLP-1s. I'll ask them, are you going to stay on it forever? Is that something you want to stay on forever?
Yeah, that depends on the person. Let's play this game. Yeah, I don't plan on doing the lifestyle stuff. I'm just going to do that.
I mean, I would tell them that if they don't want to stay on it forever, they're still going to have to do the lifestyle stuff, or they're just wasting up to $500 a month on this injection. But now that compounding is kind of out, I think it's a little less, might be a little more. It depends on the product. But,
it's like still 3 to 5.
Yeah.
It also depends on how much you need to ramp it up.
Right. And like which one you're going for, right?
Which dose is efficacious for you? Yeah.
So I would tell them that if they're going to go that route, they need to stay on it forever. It's still not going to help hormones though. So they're still going to be like inadvertently, lack of a better word, raw doggy menopause.
For real, dude. That's funny.
Oh my God. I love that.
It is a thing though. If you're going to get through it naturally, and not have any HRT, you go into the doctors and they just want to throw you on SSRIs and, now maybe a GLP-1 or metformin or something like that. And it doesn't, again, help the root cause. So you are just band-aiding it for a little while.
Would you say, now I'm going to play a different double, would you say that being in that, for all intents and purposes, they still have all the other stressors, but the one stressor that they're working now with that GLP-1 is they are not stressing on the calorie deficit. They're just getting it. Would initiating that calorie deficit then help with that, obviously, the insulin resistance, the muscle mass, the fat loss, the visceral fat, and technically that wouldn't help the hormones, or would it? Or there's still a menopause.
So it will help insulin, that hormone. It may make cortisol worse, and it's not really going to help the effects of the other hormones. It may even downregulate thyroid a little bit more because we're eating so little, and we're also in such a calorie deficit that we're going to drive up cortisol even more. If they're not working out and we have such increased fat loss, you're going to lose more muscle mass than what they were losing before with an increased calorie deficit. And I think the biggest issue I see here with GLP-1s in women, and it's kind of like the gastric sleeve or gastric bypass, is you get so used to eating like 800, 900 calories a day, and then you stay there. And your hormones obviously don't love living in such a huge calorie deficit. So you end up getting all this other hormonal complications. So yes, it will keep them in a calorie deficit, but they're going to have to get off of it at some point. And if they haven't learned how to eat,
I lost 50 pounds though. I lost 50 pounds. It's
let me know how long it takes you to gain that back. That's what I want to know.
All roads point to the Wizard of Oz.
You keep the results with how you got them. So if you got them with a GLP-1 and nothing else, you have to stay on the GLP-1. If you got them with lifestyle changes, you continue the lifestyle changes. That's how you keep them.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate your bluntness. I think that's a freaking mainstay of this conversation.
Trigger warning on this podcast.
Honestly, we can probably get more views, but I think it's true. I think this double downs on what Marcos and I do really well, and I think what you do really well, Doctor, is that consult, that time, that coaching, where it's the lifestyle. Even without our coaching, the person at the end of the day still has to address that, because if they do a GLP-1 or an HRT or anything like that, these are aids and they're going to help out, but it's going to be in perpetuity, and it's probably going to be helped a little bit more, way more, if you get the lifting in, if you decide to address eating behaviors, if you decide to address your sleep, and not, just try to blanket with medication. And these are powerful pharmacologicals. They're powerful technologies. They really are. And I'm not necessarily, how do I say this? Marcos and I run very agnostic. I know I do. where it's like it's just part of the toolkit now, right?
Yeah.
It's just part of like, oh, you're on that, okay, cool. We still got to do this, this, and this. You know?
Mm.
Dude, me and my wife were fighting about this. She's like, "Would you ever do it?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." She's like, "You didn't even bat an eye. You didn't even blink." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, like, again, we know these things to be absolute truths. You're more insulin sensitive. It helps you have motivation. It helps with a lot of other things with mental clarity, like all the things that you're listing. Yes, there are some things if you abuse it, which is why she's like so anti, because she's been with people that have abused it. I'm like, I want to talk to you in 8 years when you're probably reaching that perimenopause age, babe, and see how you're gonna. I'm gonna ask you the same question then, because she's the same age as you. Actually, she'll be 30. How old the fuck? Oh fuck, how old is she? 5 years older than me. Yeah, we have the same. We basically have the same birthday. No, she'll be 37, so she'll be your age. And so I'm like, talk to me in 10 years and then tell me that your mind won't change. Because I think that part of the difference between myself and her is that like Seamus and I get the opportunity of being with people in every different like decade of life and be able to like kind of like put an idea as, you know, as coaches as to like, why are they making these decisions? And it's not that they're looking to make the results come easier. They just want to feel good.
Mm.
So, you know, again, it doesn't mean that they can just blindly just take all these medications and everything's fixed. All roads really do point back to lifestyle intervention. And we've noticed that in our practice. I think, you know, basically, I mean, 80-90% of the people that have used it, they, you know, I ask those questions to them that are using GLP therapies. And I'm like, hey, what did you notice and what has changed? They're like, I know that this has been the easiest way for me to maintain the results that I want to see. I'm happy with the person that I am. Mind you, these people have used like HRT for a number of years already, right? So they have this other aid essentially. And everyone gets that motivational first year when they come to us, Ashley, in all honesty. Like years 1 and 2, fantastic. You see this huge, steep decline in body weight, visceral fat, all those things look amazing. And then life sets in and they think the results are just like, it's stuck, right? It's good, it's done, right? So now you throw in this little bit of an aid and they're like, oh yeah, this helps me control those things, those cravings, quote unquote, and those things that kind of snuck up after a few years. But also too, I have to understand that like it doesn't remove me from the fact of doing the work on the food, the work on the movement, the work on all those things. This just helps me stay there and kind of love myself a bit more. And I found that like super fascinating that everyone's kind of reporting the same thing. Hey, I've learned that the medication is most effective on this day. So me and my wife will plan on doing like our date night as a result of using a medication. And yeah, they're maybe in it for a longer run than most people. And like you said, you know, you have to ask that question to yourself, like, where do you see this going? And I do ask patients that too. They're like, no, absolutely not. This is the best thing that's ever existed, right? I can't wait till the newest generation comes out because it'll make it even better and easier, right? And I was like, cool. Like the scientist in me is like, that's fucking dope. We literally have solved the problem that like, you know, as a kid, like, you know, infomercials and take this, you know, Nugenics product, you know, sponsored by whatever famous athlete. Hydroxycut. Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
And so then me hearing that as like, again, like, all right, like the repercussions of like how your mind is. And I think Seamus and I are both very fascinated on like psychology and framing things a bit more. It's actually something that we're actually going to be working on to like do a presentation on in the near future. Even how I frame certain elements of doing a deficit for people has changed after 10 years of coaching now. And so the mindset of like people that have it quote unquote easier because they have access to it, I'm like, hey, but you would probably want to use the least amount possible, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So, you know, are you focusing on, you know, protein intake, this, that, and the other? And I'm like, hey, one medication vial now is stretched for 2 months versus one, right? Your cost of like using that. And, you know, I think there's obviously an intervention dose from my experience of like working in the clinical spot, right? To get you like the maximum result, but then learning to titrate it back, which I think so many people ask that question over and over again. Well, do I come off of it? And it's like, well, no, you should scale it back just like you scaled it up. Taper. And see what is going on there and where you can get it to like the lowest effective dose to then navigate management. And there's not a lot of research on that quite yet.
No, I think even the microdosing of the GLP-1s is like little data, but a lot of people are doing it. Bodybuilders doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, we work with several clients who are on them. And I want to ask you, since you do a lot of it, have you noticed I don't know how many of them have wearables, but my clients who are on it, they have really crappy HRVs and resting heart rates. And everything is tanked since starting the medication.
Is that okay? Well, starting versus like using it in perpetuity, like, I mean, how far into it?
One of them has been on it for 8 weeks, 8 or 9 weeks so far, and hers has just like been terrible.
What's her subjective feedback? If you
Is
don't
it
mind.
sema or is it tirzepatide?
Tirzepatide, Zepbound.
Zepbound? Okay. Yeah, we've definitely noticed that in the beginning, and I think it has something to do probably like the mechanisms of action on like the GLP and the GIP collectively. I do think I had a long-winded conversation to a buddy of mine who's like constantly would call me. He's like, "What if you just ate nothing but amino acids?" I was like, "You would die." Like, I don't need to debate you in this, but I was like, funny enough, the most successful drug of all time actually gives you additional insulin secretion. So I wonder if it has something to do with that in the beginning of using the medication, where there's that like upregulation of like more insulin as a result of the GLP, right? Which then theoretically might like cause some downstream effects with like HRV and heart rate recovery.
Yeah, I think there was something, I was trying to like read data on it, and I think there was something about like affecting the sinus nodes in the heart too. I don't know. But it's really fascinating. And then I had a client who was on the lowest dose for a year. And because she was in like such a deficit and losing like a ton of weight, her HRV crashed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So then we took her out of her deficit and it went right back up. But just fascinating, like, you know, the ins and outs of wearables.
It's an interesting thing. Have you noticed in your practice as well, or like coaching as well, label use of it as well? Like we've been getting reports too of people just going like joint pain gone, other symptoms, inflammatory gone, like skin issues gone. I'm like, what? Like that sounds insane. Like we're getting reports of this, and I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. But then I talked to my fiance, she's a clinical dietitian, and she was saying, well, from just like a logical standpoint, just from like a basic standpoint, like maybe they're lowering their caloric burden, and that also is an inflammatory response. If you think about it, even good food is at some point,
Yeah.
a little bit. Maybe they're just lowering the inflammatory response from just food and the caloric burn. And I was like, yeah, that maybe makes sense. Like that's how I could think about it. I don't know how else it could.
I was going to say, I haven't really seen that or had the reports back, but even fixing insulin resistance can lower acne. So you could definitely see some like skin changes with that, or just even like the delayed gut motility. I'm wondering like about like gut health and skin and joint and leaky gut, like all of that gut health stuff is now going through my head of like mechanism of action. But it's not necessarily that they may be eating better food either, but just less damaging.
Burden damaging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think to that point, for certain individuals, there's been reported cases of both sides, Seamus, when it comes to like leaky gut. Like if you actually create a slowing of the digestion and you already have some permeability, that's actually just giving it more time to sit there and for it to like kind of be excreted into the blood. And so then I'm sure like an IgG test or some other stuff that you mentioned, those Dutch tests might not look nearly as good, even though you started that thing, right? Like, you know, there might need to be some other kind of things that can like help that. And it's super fascinating because like, I mean, I spent a lot of time listening to a bunch of different like experts on these things because it's truly like probably the greatest, you know, modern creation known to man, right? Is these things, and then also how to pair it with like the holistic side of things. So, you know, listening to a holistic practitioner talk about like, yeah, like if the slowing happens, you might still benefit from having like some of those Ayurvedic herbs in there, or, you know, aloe vera or other stuff to help with like the intestinal lining and attacking your gut health even further. But like to say that it is a one-stop shop that cures it all is not necessarily true. And I think, again, funny enough, and I'm sure you noticed this actually, like how many men do you work with that have like a ton of like digestional issues?
We don't really work with men.
Okay, my point exactly, right? Like, Seamus, I know you don't, like, we have things that my wife's always like, you can eat fucking anything. It could be raw, it could be cooked, it could be like, you know, par cooked. Like,
it could be undercooked chicken at a movie theater. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I'm like, I had this conversation once with somebody like, am I just so like fragile as a human being? Like, what happened to me? And I had to go back to my mom. I was like, Mom, did you breastfeed me? Did I get my colostrum when I was a baby? I was like, I was going down like rabbit holes. I don't know. Like, I think because I have psoriasis, Dr. Ashdown, and like I'm very cognizant. Like a lot of my health and wellness kind of things are around making sure that like that's healthy, but that's food choices. That's stress. Like I'm stressed the F out with this wedding. You think any food choice is gonna override that? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. Like it's very interesting. I think my gut overall just needs some aids. You know what I'm saying? Marcos has helped me out with that. You know, I just do a few things, so I'm good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you done a GI map?
Neither of us have.
I just got mine back. They're fun. But also I just had one of my clients who's on Zepbound do a GI map because
Can you break down a GI map real quick for the audience? What does that entail real quick?
Yeah, it is a stool test. So you do have to send a stool sample in, and then they basically break it down to see if there's any bad pathogens like parasites, viruses, dysbiosis, so how much good bacteria you have versus how much of the bad bacteria. Maybe you have overgrowth, H. pylori, which mostly everyone has, but is it in like a pathogenic state? It also breaks down parasites and worms, like, the fun stuff there. And it breaks down your ability to digest fat, inflammation in the stomach. If we have like a gluten issue, our immune system in the body, in the gut, our gut lining, it kind of tells us if we have leaky gut, if we have good stomach acid production, and just what kind of dysbiosis we have going on.
So, Seamus, this is Jonah, effectively, right?
Yeah, maybe we should, we'll mention them for another time, but we are working with this, Dr. Ashley, maybe we can connect you. Jonah Health, we'll just say that there. They're known. It's like a partly GI map kind of thing, but it's utilizing artificial intelligence and utilizes simulations and like a digital twin to showcase what you need. I think it's exactly that, similar, but a little bit more nuanced in the interventions and how they are anchored to studies. So basically, if it was going to give you recommendations around, don't eat this bacteria, well, you have that bad bacteria too much, and here's a study on why you should do this intervention. So it's really cool.
So much so that it even breaks down the shopping list that you should get from the GI map, essentially. It's it was like super fascinating just to sit in and like pick the developer's brain. You wonder, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, you have more practical application
this is
of
like
it.
your baby,
No, I'm saying, like, you should really look into it, just because it's like, hey, you already have more of the practice than we do. Where it's fascinating to us because like we're looking at things that like pumping out at scale for a bunch of coaches that work for our clinical team, and just like being able to have an extra value add of like, hey, based on your map, like these are foods that are really recommended for you based on like your your digital twin, right? But for other people that have like had more time in the trenches utilizing those types of things, it would be super interesting to kind of get feedback of an understanding. It also made me think of
deep in it. You would know the nuance so much more than us.
I'm interested in the like how it goes against the protocols, because the way that you can do the GI map, just like in normal human health, there's baby ways you can step it, right? Like you can put someone on a kill off protocol, you could do antibiotics, like depending on what it says, you could do prebiotic foods and tailored prebiotics, but you could also kill off like dysbiosis and some of the things by just working on your stomach acid. So like, do we take that approach first and see if it tells you if you need to work on stomach acid first, or getting rid of dairy, like any of the inflammatory foods you eat first?
Yeah.
And if you don't,
is more.
Yeah.
It's more from the food side for sure. Food and like probiotic strains and things that can help like include that versus maybe some of like, like you just mentioned, some of those other kind of like treatment plans, right?
Yeah,
but either way, to put it in the right hands with people that say, hey, for seemingly what's probably the same, like what's the normal GI map cost somebody?
Like $500.
It's
literally the same price.
So, yeah, it's similar there, and it's like a back end clinical tool.
Yeah, it's $400, but I would always say to get zonulin. Like if you were ever going to do one, get the leaky gut test, like get zonulin with it. Yeah. So that's like $500. Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, that makes sense. We'll have to connect you. I think it's probably another tool in the toolkit to look at. Yeah. I mean, artificial intelligence. It's the guy, he has a PhD in artificial intelligence and just got into. He was in cancer research and like different modes of like healthcare that utilize artificial intelligence. And the guy was so smart. He's like, he and I had a conversation when I did a speech in New York at the Integrative Healthcare Symposium. He goes, Seamus, like artificial intelligence has been in your life since like early 2000s, maybe late 90s. Like you just don't know it. Like these things have just they weren't public to you. Like, it's been in your life for a long time. We just finally got ChatGPT, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So he's been working on a lot of things. So I think you pick his brain, super smart guy. But Dr. Ashley, I mean, let's do this. We're over an hour. We always want to make it like this, but what are some things you're excited about right now? What's going on in your day-to-day? Like, by the time this is out, it's kind of like mid-July, August. Like, what's happening for you around then?
Yeah, actually, we're doing a really big focus on PCOS and helping that clientele, because we're seeing like a giant rise in it with women, especially childbearing age women, and that's a lot of who we work with. So we're going to be doing a group coaching cohort specifically for PCOS clients. I'm kind of using it as like a avenue to also gather data, because I'll be speaking on PCOS in the future. So I want to have like a big group coaching program and just help women.
Where are you speaking for that one, by the way?
Real Coaches Summit in Vegas.
For the coaches that are listening, go to the Real Coaches Summit.
That one will be there, but maybe hopefully some few little ones in between before I get up there in April. But yeah, really excited to do a PCOS specific cohort. We've never done that before.
Wow, That's amazing. Marcos, any last questions? Any last things? I know you were going ham on the science today. I love it, dude. Any last?
I'm trying not to, but I've been down a rabbit hole listening to too many people. What does BDN stand for?
It started when I first started my company. We were called the Big Day Nutrition because I helped brides. Like, I started with brides,
Oh,
and
I needed that.
the functional that I am now. It is
I
not.
needed that. I'm the bride right now. I'm going bridezilla. My fiance called me the bridezilla because like I'm super. Like Marcos is saying, I'm super organized. I'm like, you should see the back end, homie. And it's
That's just what you. That's just what you sent me, dude. Overwhelmed. Just like, yeah. You could have just sent me 2 links and it's like time, place, boom. You
Yeah.
I'm
know.
honestly impressed. The husband has so much. Like, you're doing so much in it. Usually, it's like the bride.
I have like just between you. My fiance does a lot. She basically works 3 jobs. She is a clinical dietitian at this rehab center. She does online dietetics and then like has her own side clients and like she's doing a lot. And she also has goals around like a marathon this year and all these other things. And like I'm like over here like I told Marcos the other day like between this person I was like, dude, I thought I was doing a lot. I said I should go do more shit. Like I need to go do more things.
How's your fiance's thyroid?
So that's the thing. Just personally, like I want to check some of her labs. I want to do like an omega quant. I want to do a few things because like we're getting married, but then also like looking at health history, looking at those things. Like I already have health issues, and I'm like, how do I look at kids? So like, there's a lot of things that like are in my mind about health.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Dr. Ashley Dwyer, thank you so much for giving us a little over an hour of your time. Big Day Nutrition. I love that. Team.
Big
Like
Day.
you're like BDN for short. We all love acronyms here. You know, it was the Macro Perspective podcast. We're like, nah, we're TMPP now. And then it was like, no, we're the Macro Pod and blah. It doesn't matter.
That lands a lot more.
We get it. And I think everybody likes to shorten it, but then it sticks because it has like that like attachment, like why you got started and why you did it. And then it evolves. And it's funny because my predecessor and mentor always was like, I want to work with the more difficult clients. And I was like, don't you just want to work with people that will pay you, bro? That sounds like you, right? Yeah. I was like, don't you want people that like will pay you? You know, here we are working for, you know, arguably one of the people that helped like really put like online coaching on the map. And he's like, no, dude, like the easy people, they're easy. And I need to figure out like the gut, the hormone, all those things. I'm more fascinated with that. I didn't get it at first. And now here we are, however many years later, I'm like, oh, I get it. So, you know, bringing more people on that have, again, more of a core focus there. Like, again, if something is not going to work with me, it's really nice to like continue to like expand like our network of like people that have a, you know, just another way of approaching it. And people will be like, oh, like, why would you send me away? And I was like, no, like, I just feel like after connecting with this person, I think that they can help you get to the root cause a little better than me, right? And maybe they can help you teach. I taught you patience. I taught you certain elements to like give it time, but they're gonna dive into this, like some other stuff that, like, truth be told, like I don't have the time for. I'm here to try to like help people get these rudimentary ideas and levels down, and diving into those deeper things, while I could, it's just not in my bandwidth anymore.
I think that's a great coaching philosophy. I do the same, and I think more people should refer out. Like, we're not meant to have every specialty either.
I think at the beginning of my career, especially when I was going deep into like the clinical and like the functional stuff, it's like, oh, I want to solve every problem. I'm like, yeah, like, I'm not like, I can't do this. Like, I'm like more like, I'm passionate about what I'm passionate about, and like I can help you with this, but like in perpetuity, I probably just need to send you like to Dr. Ashley Dyer or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're givers gain, right? Like, I'm just going to use a BNI strategy there. Like, it's, you know, truth be told, the more people that I can connect with and figure out how to help solve problems, the more it seems like it comes back to me like next, right? So, you know, again, thank you so much for today. We'll chat a little bit more, you know, as we wrap things up on the back end. But for everybody else that was listening today, I hope you got a lot of like great things. Go give her a follow on Instagram because her page is really amazing. I can really tell that she spends a lot of time focusing on that. And as a coach that really hates social media personally, for people to do that, like my hat's off. Like, I got to tip my cap, whether it's just you or a team of people like really focusing on that. Like, I know the struggle, and mentally, like, if you go to my page right now, it's only podcast episodes because I'm struggling with personal content. So I'm being lazy, but
got busy with other things. Got things to do. But let's close this out here too. Marcos, like, guys, for the folks listening as we end here, like, if this resonated with you, like it should, because everyone has like a woman in their life, whether it be their mom, a sister, a wife, a friend, like that is in this cohort. You know, maybe send them this episode. Just tell them, take a listen, like what this person, Dr. Ashley Dyer, has to talk about. Just give it a listen. Maybe it might resonate with them. Maybe it's just a quick share, and you can change that person's life. And next thing you know, they're working on all the things that they have not been able to work on, and you can help someone with their health. So, Macro Prod, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.